thank you all again for joining our session. We recognize this is a really busy time for everyone, and we're just so thankful you could be with us today to learn more about setting up rostering and single sign-on with McGraw-Hill on Clever. To get started, let's go over some housekeeping. If you have questions for us, please submit those in the Q&A box, not the chat box on Zoom here. And we have a couple of Clever's technical support specialists, Peyton and Victoria, helping us out in the Q&A console. So feel free to post your questions in, again, that Q&A box throughout. And we'll also have about 5 to 10 minutes for live Q&A at the end of the session. So if we don't get to your question, we'll also be following up via email afterwards. And also just wanted to let you know the session is being recorded. So we'll be sending a follow-up email with that recording, and you can feel free to share that with anyone at your district who's interested. Kicking it off with some introductions, my name is Genevieve, and I'm on Clever's district success team. I'm a former teacher and definitely understand the importance of having all your online learning resources readily accessible for your students. I've been at Clever for almost 2 years and really enjoy helping schools and districts get set up for success with Clever's solutions, whether you're in the classroom, remote, or a hybrid. And now I'll hand it over to Kim Miller to introduce herself.
Thank you, Genevieve. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Miller. I'm a Senior Director of Digital Integration Services for McGraw-Hill. Been with McGraw-Hill for 30 years. I recognize some of the names that were on the invite, so very excited to join you today and talk about how you can integrate with Clever and McGraw-Hill.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kim. We're so happy to have you here. So just our agenda here in this webinar, we'll be covering the following. An introduction, why connect with McGraw-Hill through Clever, an overview of the key steps and integration requirements such as self-registered accounts, term data, and more. These include scheduling your onboarding call with McGraw-Hill to discuss the integration process and project plan, connecting McGraw-Hill to your Clever dashboard, launching McGraw-Hill at your district, training your teachers, and all the support resources we have available for you. And lastly, we'll have time for about 5 to 10 minutes of live Q&A at the end. Again, please remember to submit your questions into the Zoom Q&A console and not the chat box. If we don't have time to get to all your questions live, our team will be following up with you via email as well. We'll start out with some more information about our partnership and the key setup steps. McGraw-Hill and Clever's expanded partnership makes it easier than ever before for students to access digital learning tools. Through a new agreement between 2 industry leaders, U.S. K-12 school districts using McGraw-Hill's programs will be able to access Clever's free rostering and single sign-on platform. The integration supports account provisioning and access to any programs hosted on the ConnectEd or Open Learning platform. You'll have access to world-class support from both teams to help you every step of the way. Let's go over the key steps and integration requirements for connecting McGraw-Hill through Clever. The key steps to set up McGraw-Hill with Clever are: first, schedule a call with McGraw-Hill to discuss a project plan and onboarding steps. Then you'll connect McGraw-Hill to your Clever account. And lastly, you'll be ready to launch McGraw-Hill with Clever at your district. We'll start by going over the integration process and required steps. And I'll hand it over to Kim to walk us through this.
Great, thank you, Genevieve. There are a few required steps on both sides of the house with Clever, and Genevieve will go into more detail through the rest of the presentation on those required steps on the Clever side. But I wanted to talk today a few steps on the McGraw-Hill side because there is a project plan for existing users. So as we mentioned, scheduling a call with us, you'll hear us say that several times during this presentation because that is where we plan with you individually and create that project plan for your end users and make sure you're successful with that integration. So we'll show you different ways you can schedule that call. We'll configure the single sign-on and make sure that your users are able to get to both of our platforms, ConnectEd and Open Learning. and then sync your data, go over data requirements, review your data errors, and map content and go live. Next slide, please. Great. So talking about how to request McGraw-Hill. So it's never too soon. We would like to have those conversations now to plan for back to school. I'm sure that you all get busy. We get busy too, and you may fall into line, and we want to get you in that line as soon as possible. So there are several ways that you can request a call with McGraw-Hill. There are some district invites we're sending out through your Clever dashboard, and we're sending those to common customers. So have McGraw-Hill content and are already connected to Clever, but not connected to McGraw-Hill. And those are going out in batches. We're coordinating closely with Clever and sending those out in batches to your district administrators. They will go through June, but you don't have to wait for that district invite to get started and schedule that call with McGraw-Hill. The second way is the Clever dashboard, and this is our preferred method. You can request that through your Clever dashboard, which will start the process on our side and send a request. I have a coordinator on my team that will send you a scheduling link to the proper region and analysts that will be working through your direct integration. The third way is there are some external tools that we use outside of Clever, which is an integration online form and an email address direct to us. That is not our preferred method with Clever, but it is available. If you've done one of those two things, you don't need to send a duplicate request. But if you are interested after today to get started with us and schedule that call, I would prefer that you use the Clever dashboard to make that request, and that'll start our process. Next slide, please. Awesome. On that intake call, some things for you to be prepared to discuss with our analysts. We are regional. I have 8 analysts across the nation that will work with you through the integration process. We'll review your current programs that you have on the Open Learning and ConnectEd platform to see what products you have from McGraw-Hill, your existing users. If you're moving from a self-registered account to a managed, what we call managed, rostered, integrated account, then we'll need to talk about how those users exist in our platform currently. If they were imported by your teachers, there may be duplicates that we need to clean up, and there may be a matching process that we can do to help match those users and not have to purge or clean out. But we will discuss that with you and come up with the best implementation for your users and your district. We'll confirm a user ID. It's very important as we move into this world of interoperability that we have a consistent user ID through all your third-party systems. So my team is equipped to have that conversation with you. Sometimes it may end up being an email address, but we've even found that email addresses are not consistent through all systems. So we'll have that whole conversation about a consistent user ID. And it's important that that user ID stay consistent through your relationship with Clever and McGraw-Hill. Data requirements. Genevieve is going to go into a lot more detail on data requirements on roster data, but there are some requirements we have: consistent user ID that I just mentioned, term data, and course data. Again, she'll provide a lot more detail on those 3 items, but they are required on our side to be successful. And then of course, the project timeline. It does take time on the McGraw-Hill side. That's something I really want you to understand, that that data cleanup may take a couple of weeks. So we definitely want to start those conversations early if you want to be prepared for back to school 2021. Next slide, please. This last piece, it seems to be where the tech and the curriculum come together. So once we have the data files and the SSO configured and we confirm that everybody is reaching the right platform, there's a piece that we need to map your course content to your McGraw-Hill content to make sure that all users that are enrolled in the future into that course receive their McGraw-Hill licensed content. So it's often suggested that you bring the curriculum team with you to your intake call for McGraw-Hill so that we can talk about that course mapping. It is a very important step, and not always does tech know the exact courses that the McGraw-Hill content has been purchased for. So I encourage you to include your curriculum directors, curriculum specialists on your side so that this piece can be ready to go when we're ready to map that content in our Access Manager tool. That is a McGraw-Hill tool specific that ingests your roster data. And then we map the course content so that all users in the future for back to school and throughout the year that join that course through your SIS system can automatically be assigned the content overnight. I think that brings me to a close, and I'll turn it back over to Genevieve for additional details.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kim. Really appreciate you sharing that. So yeah, next steps, once you've had that call with McGraw-Hill, it's time to connect to McGraw-Hill on Clever. So as Kim mentioned, you'll first need to make sure that the following data fields are synced to Clever. These data elements are required for successful integration with McGraw-Hill. Term name, term start date, term end date, course name, teacher email, and student email is recommended but not required. So to make sure that you're syncing these fields to Clever, you can log into your Clever dashboard, which is schools.clever.com. Once you're signed into your dashboard, you can select Support Tools, Data Browser from the left-hand menu. And from there, you can click on the tabs as shown at the top to spot check for those emails, course names, and the term names, start and end dates. Back on the homepage of your Clever dashboard, which again is schools.clever.com, you'll likely see an invitation from McGraw-Hill. Once you've had that onboarding call with McGraw-Hill, you can go ahead and accept the invite. And if you did not receive an invite, you can also place a request through the Clever dashboard by navigating to Applications, Request Applications in the left-hand menu, and searching for McGraw-Hill in the search bar. The next step, and you'll be guided through this with our setup guide as shown here. The next step will be setting up data sharing permissions. So you'll only want to share classes and users at school sites that will be using the McGraw-Hill content. And you'll see that Clever has several options for sharing data. Selecting the I'd like to customize my sharing option here will let you set really granular sharing rules. So for example, you can choose to share only specific grade levels or only specific subjects. And we have a lot of information about this in our Help Center, which you can access at support.clever.com, and I'll be sharing that again. But this has a lot of great information about setting up data sharing. The next step from that setup guide, you'll be able to check for any missing data in that data validation step or anytime by navigating to Support Tools and then Data Quality. So remember, you must be sending Clever term and course data. And once you've connected McGraw-Hill on Clever, you're ready to launch it at your schools. If you haven't already, please let us know how you plan to use the Clever portal. You'll see this banner on the homepage of your Clever dashboard, schools.clever.com, that asks if you plan to use the Clever portal. Saying yes here will take you to the portal plan, which is a page in the dashboard that provides more resources to help you make the most of your Clever account. Also on the homepage of your Clever dashboard, you'll want to make sure the McGraw-Hill application's launch date is correct. The launch date is when the application will start showing up on the Clever portal for your students and teachers. If the launch date needs to be adjusted, please reach out to the McGraw-Hill team and they'll be able to help with that. Finally, you'll want to let your teachers know how to log into Clever. So by visiting the portal plan, which you can get to from your Clever dashboard under Portal Plan on the left-hand menu, you'll have access to email templates you can send to your teachers. And these include a 10-minute training video that explains how teachers can use the Clever portal, including message their students, view login analytics, post announcements, share resources, and more. There's really so much that teachers can do. And I know our overview today is going by really quickly, but we also have a lot of support resources to help you with every step of this process. We've prepared materials to help your McGraw-Hill with Clever launch go smoothly and successfully. So please visit clever.com/McGraw-Hill, and we'll be sending that out in our follow-up email. There you'll find onboarding guides to help you through the setup, as well as login instructions you can send out to your teachers. You can reach out to the Clever support team at support.clever.com for help with the following areas: adding fields to your data sync to Clever, again, remembering to capture that term and course data and email addresses, setting up data sharing permissions, resolving any data quality errors and warnings, and for more help with rolling out the Clever portal to your schools. And I'll hand it back over to Kim to talk about McGraw-Hill support.
Genevieve, yes, we provide integration services. That is my team that does the complete new integration and make sure you're up and running and successful. Then we transition to our integration support team, which is a dedicated team for our administrators and supporting that integration through your term or your license content. And then we have technical support for how to use. So that would be the line for your teachers and parents to contact should they need assistance with how to use our content once it's been integrated.
Thank you so much, Kim. Okay, so pausing here, we want to spend the rest of this session, and we do have about 10 minutes, answering your questions. So I see that there are some questions in that Q&A box so far. Please keep them coming. Post them in, again, that Q&A console, not the chat, if you haven't already. And we're going to try to answer as many as we can right now. If we don't get to all of your questions, our team will follow up with you via email, so you can look out for that. Okay, let me dive in here. The first question I saw, working with one school district, but elementary buildings use Google Classroom and the middle school uses Schoology. Can Clever roster McGraw-Hill for both, but be accessed in different ways? We are still in conversation about using the Clever portal at the middle school, and this district also uses Skyward in all 3 buildings in one Skyward instance. Awesome. I think I'll hand this one over to Peyton from our technical support team to help with this one.
Hi, everybody. This is a great question. We can definitely work with you on integrating your Skyward data into McGraw-Hill. In regards to the portal you choose to use, we can certainly work with you to ensure that students, depending on which school they're at, can access McGraw, whether it be through Google Classroom or Schoology. I would definitely suggest reaching out to our support team as soon as you start to make those decisions, and we can start working with you as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peyton. Looks like the next question is going to be one for Kim. How are McGraw-Hill master key codes assigned to teachers that use Clever? Is McGraw-Hill moving to a site license for curriculum instead of individual codes to make the integration run smoother?
That is an excellent question. Thank you, Genevieve. So when I showed briefly that Access Manager tool, that is kind of our mapping tool that we built. So master codes are behind the scenes and no longer need to be on the file. If you're building resource files, that's something that OneRoster does offer, and resource files can be used and then master codes kind of come back into play. But with Clever, we use that Access Manager tool to map your content and your curriculum. Directors can map content to course and master codes kind of go away. As for moving to site licenses, I can't really answer that. I'm not on the sales side of things. I can tell you that there are still individual license seats for our permission content, but master codes are kind of going away behind the scenes.
Thanks, Kim. The next question is one for you as well. Is it possible to just clean out the ConnectEd database and start over before we sync through Clever?
It is possible. Anything's possible sometimes, but when you get on that intake call, the analyst will review the programs that you're currently using and make sure that there is not an intervention product or a study sync product that we have advertised that student data travels with them as they go from year to year. So that's what they'll do, is look at your products and make sure that a complete purge may be the best option, or if we need to map those users.
Thanks, Kim. The next one looks like maybe you can chime in and I can add on too. We are currently using Google SSO to integrate with McGraw-Hill and use custom extracts. Will it be as easy to stop custom extracts and cut over to Clever?
Yeah, I'll start. Yes, it'll be easy. Custom extracts, I'm imagining you're mentioning the McGraw-Hill proprietary file. Maybe that you've done that in the past. That same file format ingests into that access manager tool already that I was speaking of. So cutting over to Clever Rostering will be really easy and simple as long as those user IDs are consistent. So whatever you are populating in our username field needs to be existent in Clever so that we can match on that ID, and then it'll be pretty easy.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And on the Clever side for this one, it is really easy for Clever to support Google as an IDP for single sign-on, as well as automated rostering with your student information system. So we'll definitely be able to help you with that. Okay, the next question looks like a great one for Peyton. Doesn't look like we're syncing terms with Clever. Do we contact support to get this added to our sync?
Hey, that's a great question. Yes is the answer, and the process will be dependent on your district sync type. Regardless of your sync type, though, we can definitely help ensure that you get your term data into Clever and to get that over to McGraw-Hill.
Yeah, thanks so much, Peyton. Next one looks like another question for Kim. If we currently sync McGraw-Hill with Google and Schoology, can we continue to sync with those?
Yeah, and I know, yes, so you are doing a single sign-on from Schoology and I forget the second one, sorry, Genevieve.
Google.
With Google,
Google.
yes. Again, it's all dependent on that consistent user ID. So as long as it seems like we've already implemented Schoology and Google, so we found a consistent user ID between those two systems. As long as that user ID exists in Clever, then we can sync all three.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. So many great questions.
Yes.
I can take the next one. There are 3 McGraw-Hill apps in Clever. Do we only need the one that does both SSO and rostering? So historically, we did have separate SSO and rostering with McGraw-Hill, but now we have merged to just have one SSO and rostering app. So you'll either be able to accept your invitation from that one SSO plus rostering app, or again, when you do that search, you should see, like you mentioned, the one that has both SSO and rostering, and request that one. Great question. Okay, next question. I can take this, and Kim, you might want to add on to this one as well. We use McGraw-Hill online content in 2 schools, but may only want to roster via Clever in 1 school. Will that work? And yes, on the Clever end, you can select your schools really granularly using Clever's sharing rules. However, I do want to defer to Kim whether you can support a different rostering setup in addition to Clever at a single time.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I do want to be sure to say we set it up at your district hierarchy or your purchasing account. So when we turn on an integration, we move you to a managed district, and there are some tools that are turned off on your account. So we want to make sure that if you're implementing an integration, it is at the full account level and not individual schools, unless those schools have their own purchasing account and purchase separately.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Next one I can answer. This district says we currently have 2 McGraw-Hill apps in Clever, one for teachers and students to access McGraw-Hill, I think the SSO, and the other for rostering only. Do we need to do anything differently at this point, or will conversion happen automatically? So that's great. Glad to hear that you're already using those, and you will not need to do anything at this time. Clever will be converting your connection to a single application before back to school to make it easier for you to manage while maintaining that access that you have now. And please reach out to Clever support if you do have further questions on this. We're happy to provide more information there. Okay, next question looks like this is one for Kim. Is there a cost for the integrations from McGraw-Hill?
That is an excellent question, and the answer is no. All integrations at McGraw-Hill are at no cost.
Awesome, that's always the best answer there. Next one, I think Peyton, you can help me out with this. Let me see. Can you please enter the contact information on the previous screen in the chat? Peyton, would you mind entering the Clever support info in the chat box?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next one looks like this would be for Kim. Does McGraw-Hill prefer districts use Clever, or are you agnostic?
Yeah, I want to be clear that we are inclusive. We support many third-party systems and rostering providers. So we are not a preferred, we say preferred partner with Clever because we want to make it as easy for you and flexible on your end. So know that we do offer single sign-on and rostering through other services also, and we are not solely Clever.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, looks like next one, both you and I, Kim, can answer this. How deeply can an administrator go using the portal? Does the admin have the ability to add, delete, modify accounts, licenses, terms, etc.? On the Clever end, the Clever admin is the role with the most permissions on the Clever end. So you'll have the ability to do things on the Clever setup end, such as your sync, add or modify login methods, request additional applications, adjust those data sharing permissions. All of that can be done by the Clever admin. Really, that is total control on the Clever end. I'll hand it over to Kim for the McGraw-Hill. What administrator permissions do they have on the McGraw-Hill end? Can they add, delete, modify accounts, licenses?
There are lots of different administrator permissions on our platforms, but you should be able to view your licenses and see what are assigned. And then that access manager tool also shows you what courses you've mapped and those enrollments for those courses. So that should match up to your managed product screen with the licensing, how many seats you've purchased, when they expire, and how many licenses have been assigned, or if you're short any. So delete is a little bit questionable. We don't allow a lot of delete naturally in the platform, but we can always work with you to determine what you wanted to delete. But most of it is controlled through your roster files. So if a user is no longer on your roster file, we make them inactive on our side. We don't delete their data, but we do make them inactive, and then we remove the license from them. So we manage the content all through that Clever rostering file.
Thanks, Kim. One more definitely for you. Did Kim say, if we have accepted the invite, will McGraw-Hill contact me?
Kim did say that. We are working closely with Clever to make sure that anybody who accepted that district invite, that you flow into our normal process. We have a lot of different requests coming in from all different avenues. And we want to make sure that everybody who requested that district invite and accepted that, we reach out to you. So yes, our coordinator is receiving a report from Clever, and they are making sure that we did get contact and have contact information so we can reach out to you. You should receive a scheduling link. If you do not, then we'll provide our digital solutions email address so that we can follow up with you.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. I know we're close to time, but we are going to try to do one or two more questions really quickly here. Kim, another one for you. Do you know if the co-teacher role will be supported within the McGraw-Hill application?
That is another excellent question. But yes, moving to Clever rostering, which behind the scenes is IMS Global One roster, there is support for co-teaching. I have to be clear that it's really program dependent because the ConnectEd platform doesn't really have a co-teaching experience, but the open learning platform does. So we'll definitely get into those conversations with your analysts, and the analysts can take a look at your products and be more specific.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll do one more. You mentioned one roster. Are you rostering directly through Clever, or do we send you a separate one roster file? So I can provide some information on this. Clever generates one roster format files, so there is no need to send Clever a separate one roster file. You'll just sync to Clever from your student information system as normal.
And Genevieve, if I could follow up on that, if you're already sending us a one roster formatted file and you want to continue doing that, that's fine. We're just offering the Clever rostering services for anybody who wants to move to managing everything through a Clever dashboard.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, we are 1 minute over. There are so many great questions, and unfortunately, we did not get to all of them live. However, our team will be following up with you via email, so don't worry, we will be in touch. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your time and for all that you've done and are continuing to do to provide a quality education experience for your students in this really challenging school year. We are so grateful to be working with you, and thank you so much.